Hi, this is Yanis from Noisebud, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about my plugin called Purr-Fect, which is a gain compensating thing. But first, let's bash some plugins from other developers. I use this as an example of a plugin that lacks auto gain or gain compensation, and by that makes it really hard to use. And I'm gonna show you that. Let's add a limiter as well, because I'm gonna boost the signal. Okay, here we go. Let's try to use this without Purr-Fect, without gain compensation, and see if we actually can hear what it does. Yeah, I can hear that the signal is changing, but I'm not sure if I made anything better. It's louder. I can hear that it starts to distort, but is it good distortion? Is it usable? And okay, if I'm mixing, then I maybe can just go on my emotions and say, yeah, it feels cool. Then it maybe is cool. But while mastering, you can't do that. You can't just use a feeling for something. You need to be sure that the stuff you are adding actually make things better, so that it will translate to the world and sound as intended, and that you are not doing any harm. Maybe if you distort something in the wrong way, it will be perceived as not as loud as it could be, or not as dynamic. So you can really break the audio with things like this. So gain compensation is crucial. And the thing is, if you're working with the hardware that this plugin is emulating, you have two hands. Then you can use the right hand, put that on the output knob. You can do the adjustment with your left hand, and you're automatically, without thinking about it, you're adjusting the output gain, because you don't want to boost the signal too much. You don't want to attenuate it too much, because the next unit in the signal path, maybe it's a compressor, will start to behave really strange if you are feeding that with a boosted signal. So you just do that. You gain stage all the way through your analog chain. It's not a problem. You have two hands. But with the plugin, I only have one mouse. If I change this, I can't be here at the same time. Or you could if you had a MIDI controller maybe. But it's not practical. And it's so easy to make an algorithm that just compensates for the levels. So it's not an issue in digital. I mean, in hardware, it's really hard to make that work or with the auto gain. So that's why I don't have it in most gear. But in a plugin, it's easy. So please do that. And a company like Plugin Alliance or Brainworks, why don't you make an algorithm like this and just add that to every plugin that you make? It would be so much easier. So, okay. Now we tried to use this without gain compensation. Let's add Purr-Fect to the signal. I'm not going to show you how to set this up. I'm going to show you the functions in Purr-Fect, but I'm not going to show you how to set this up. You have to read the manual or check another video for how to do that. You can put the limiter post the effect chain. All right. Now I added Purr-Fect, and let's start to do the exact same thing as we did before, but this time it's level compensated. So immediately I start to hear what I'm actually doing, and this plugin, maybe I can use this now, because I bought it, it's really stupid, I don't know why, because I never used it. Not on a single master. Never, ever. Because I don't know how it sounds. Because it always changed the level, and I'm sick of it. I don't want to use it. But with Purr-Fect, yeah, sure. I will try it. See if I like it. And another cool thing with the Purr-Fect is let's add just a gain control. And I put that in front of black box. So now we have a gain control and black box. And now I can start to really push the signal into the black box. And now I'm more of simulating a creative way of working. Maybe not in mastering, but more mixing or sound design. And let's try to boost the signal a lot just to see what happens. All right, so that's how it sounds when you're driving it by 60 decibels. This is really cool. You can do this while using Purr-Fect, because Purr-Fect doesn't care if you have 1 plugin, 2 plugins, 3 plugins, or 100 plugins. It will be harder for it to compensate 100 plugins, but you can do it. Let's add a third plugin. Let's add an equalizer. Let me put that first in the chain. So now it's first a equalizer, then a gain plugin, then black box. And it's still level compensated. All changes are made to the level. So I changed the output level of magenta, which is a equalizer from acoustic audio, and you can't hear it really. So let's start to do some stuff. So it's all level compensated, and it's so lovely to work with. All of a sudden, a lot of plugins gets very useful instead of totally pointless. I wouldn't say that magenta was pointless before, but it's great to have level compensation in more simple plugins like an equalizer or processor like an equalizer, because you start to hear that the things you are actually doing to signal is beneficial. You're not hurting the signal, and you hear that instantly with level compensation. And now this is just a really quick walkthrough with the plugin. Purr-Fect, what the different buttons are for. I'm not going to talk too much about the check button. It's something that we use when we're setting it up, so you can read about that in the manual. It's to help troubleshooting. The speed control. Most of the times, you're probably okay with using the default setting. It's really quick. It makes the it makes perfect work. I think it's like 20 milliseconds or something. So if you do a really fast gain change, you may hear the level adjusting a little bit, but it's so quick, so most changes you won't notice it. But if you're working with something that changed the phase of the signal a lot, so when it tries to compensate, because it will compare the dry signal that's coming into the sidechain of Purr-Fect with the affected signal, the processed signal. And if the gain changed a lot, or if the phase changed a lot, then the two signals will be so they will differ a lot, and it will be harder for it to compensate, and it will start to work, try to compensate for the level, and that will cause some modulation distortion, which you will hear, and may break. When say that you're working with dynamics, then it will break the things that you're doing. If you adding a compressor and Purr-Fect will just compensate for all the level changes, then you won't hear your compression settings. So that's why we have the speed control. We can set that to a higher value, so it starts to work a bit slower, and as soon as you get up to when it's pointing up 12 o'clock, then it's probably enough to work with most dynamics things, but you can make it even slower if you want to really find just something. So that's the speed control. The lock control, it just locks the level compensation. So when you're done processing whatever you're doing, if it's a distortion, compression, or equalizer or other effects, when you think, well, now I'm done, I like how it sounds, then you just lock this and it won't try to compensate for level anymore. It's locked at a specific value. The pre-control, that will listen to the unaffected signal. So it's like a bypass button. It will bypass, with this chain, it will bypass the gain, black box, and the magenta plugin. It will bypass that with just one push of a button, so you can listen to how the signal sounds before you added those effects and how it sounds after. Let's do that. So this is the dry signal. This is the signal with the effects activated. The delta button, we can play that as well and listen. That is like delta in the most plugins. It will take the dry signal, phase invert that, mix that with the processed signal, and what you hear is the differences between the two signals. Everything else that is equal between the two signals will be phased out, and you don't hear that, so you just hear what differs the two signals. It sounds like this. And the bypass button, that will bypass the gain compensation. And in this case, you can see that it's lit up a little red around. That means that the signal that are coming in are actually clipping and is probably louder than the incoming signal, so I have added a lot of gain. My recommendation is to not let that go up to the red, but it's up to you. You can do it as you want. You can add 60 decibels of gain if you want. But if you hit the bypass button and you add 60 decibel of gain, you will be hit by all that level. So you may hurt your gear, your speakers, your ears, and well, you hurt everything. So my recommendation is to keep your levels in control. If this starts to lit up red, and you can see the waveform behind as well that are scrolling through here. If that's looking like a square wave, then go back to your plugin chain and try to adjust the level somewhere so that it's not going into the red. Let's do that. So let's not lock the signal. So now it's not red, it's safe. So now I can use the bypass button and see how much I actually changed the game. Whoa. So that's how you use Purr-Fect, a little quick walkthrough, and why you should use it, and how a lot of plugins just get so much better if you use Purr-Fect. So use Purr-Fect. It's available on Patreon right now, so just join my Patreon and download Purr-Fect and start to work with it, together with a lot of other plugins that's already there. So have a good evening, and I see you later on.